we're all at Mount Sinai, and Pastor Durham had passed away, and Pastor Reed had been coming to Mount Sinai for a while, and we enjoyed his messages. Mike Parker and myself, we went up to Philadelphia, and we challenged Bishop Reed to come down and start a church. And we talked about him starting a church, and he said the only way he could do it would be come down in the evening and do it. And so we said that wouldn't be no problem. We just needed him to do it, and he agreed to do it.
After the death of Reverend David Durham, who was the pastor of Mount Sinai, it was a very trying time for the members of Mount Sinai, as well as myself and my family. We would just travel around to different churches on Sundays and just felt like we were in a spiritual desert. I guess it was maybe about a month or so after Pastor Durham passed, the deacons ministry at Mount Sinai asked Bishop Reed if he would come and preach on the first Sunday, as well as do a relationship seminar. The relationship seminars were totally awesome. There were over 700 people that would be in attendance on a Saturday, and then on Sunday, Bishop Reed would preach as well as do communion. This whole weekend gave us a sense of hope, and it just left us wanting more. After several months of Bishop Reed doing the seminars and preaching on the first Sundays, we talked about possibly doing a Bible study. If he would come down and do a Bible study during the week. So he prayed about it, went and talked to his church about it, and so in the meanwhile, I went and looked for places that we could have Bible study. We used the Kettering Library, we used the Kettering Community Center, as well as in some hotels. And he would do a Bible study once a week. And of course, after that, it left us wanting even more. There were little rumblings about, wow, wouldn't it be great if Bishop Reed would start a church? So I know several of us started talking about it. I know Pastor Claude Williams and others went to Philadelphia to talk to him about it. I remember one of the statements that I said to Bishop Reed was, if it looks like a church and quacks like a church, then it's a church. So after that, Bishop Reed went into serious prayer and discussion with his leadership at his church. And nobody I knew had ever started a church before, and so we all just kind of got together and figured it out. We would carry the files around in a file cabinet, a portable file cabinet, and have it in our car. And we would, when we first started, it felt like our house was like the church annex, because we would have meetings there, we would have choir rehearsal there. But it was an exciting time because it was a group of families that came together for the formation of what is known now as the Sharon Bible Fellowship Church.
We were doing a marriage enrichment workshop or seminar, and he would come and have a discussion with us at Sinai. And then we moved to this, I don't know if it's a community center, I can't remember what it was, but it was in Kettering, Maryland, and we were there for a while, continuing this discussion on marriage and different activities that you do with married couples, which evolved into some type of Bible study. And then the place burned down. So we had to find another location, and then we moved to a hotel on Allentown Road initially, and we outgrew that space. And then we ended up at the Best Western, which is, a few blocks down the street. And what was interesting about that was we were in competition with activities in another room. They were having a party over here, and we were having our party over here.
We on one side of the hotel, in their conference room, and we praising it up. But right directly next door is the bar. And I'm talking about, it's like we battling. God getting the glory on there, on one side, and on the other side, you got, shake, rattle, and roll, it's your thing, do what you want to do on the other side.
I didn't even really know that we were in a hotel, to be honest. Probably up until I started seeing like other people working desk and stuff, and I was like, what is going on? I knew this wasn't, I was like, they're not a part of our church. So then I put two and two together, and I was like, okay, we're not at the church. Okay, got you.
And Darlene, she would pack up the portable piano. We'd sing. Anna Robinson was the head usher. We had a usher named Chris White, and we've had folding chairs, and we would come and have service. And the beautiful thing is that Sharon North, which was termed at that time our mother church, and we still consider it the mother church, they so graciously provided preachers. Pastor Reed would send different preachers to give us the word on a Sunday. We'd have Pastor Lambert, Pastor Keynes, Pastor Johnson. They would come. We used to call them the gospel gangsters because they were sharp and they knew the word.
And the thing here is, because we were hungry for the word and wanting to worship and have God being real in our lives and in our situation, it didn't matter where we were. And so, basically, this was like some practice of like worshiping God. I thought I had to be in the church to worship God, but I've been in the library. He's been good. I've been in the hotel. He's been good. And, and I'm like, all right, he's good. But then all of a sudden, be like, this thing is growing. And I'm talking about at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we dragging the kids, our families, thinking about what we got to do to work the next day, but God's still getting the glory.
So we started talking about we needed some stability. So I remember I was at a conference for my job, and as the Lord would have it, I met this pastor, and I was telling him about what we were doing, and he began to tell me about this church that was in Lanham, Maryland, that he knew the pastor, and the pastor was looking for someone to purchase the church.
Man, this church was dusty as an old Bible sitting on a coffee table. Oh no, we got an opportunity. God is working it out for us. He was hearing our prayers.
I took it to Bishop Reed, and then we asked Deacon Johnny Walker if he would follow up on it. So he was able to talk to the pastor of Seabrook, and the pastor of Seabrook really wanted to sell the church. But we knew we were not in a position at the time to buy.
But then this would let you know it was God. We had this big old church. We knew this thing could easily meet our needs for us to grow. But we didn't have any money.
So we were able to talk to him about us renting the church. After a little time went past of renting, he came to us, and he really wanted to, again, sell the church because he wanted to go set up another church somewhere else. So Bishop Reed was able to talk to his leadership at Sharon Baptist, and they were in agreement to loan us the operating funds that we needed to start the church. So I believe it We started renting the facility, and within 90 days,
90 days.
Within 90 days.
we went to settlement. And here we are 20 years later.
And our cornerstone says that it was established officially as Sharon Bible Fellowship in February of 1998. And we were glad. We said, and this is the Lord's doing, and it's marvelous. It's marvelous in our sight.
So happy that I can finally tell my side of the story of how the church got its name. People always want to act like they don't know the story, but I'm going to finally tell y'all the truth. See, the truth is, we used to meet and have these meetings at the Mitchell's house in Bowie. And this Saturday, in particular, like, I was there with them because that's just kind of what I did at that age. I think, oh gosh, 20 years ago. Ooh. Anyway, I was younger, and so I went with my parents to this meeting, and it was, it was fascinating. So they said, oh, this meeting we're going to name the church. I said, okay, cool. So, as a little kid, you're not really thinking about anything. So I'm just there in the other room. I think I was like in the family room. And so they all had the names. And I put a name in. I said I wanted to call it, I think, like, New Hope or something, because I just felt like this church was giving everyone a new hope. Now, mind you, I'm young, but I'm deep, okay? I'm deep. So I said New Hope. And so everybody's like, oh no, we can't do that. We kind of want Sharon to be in it. And that's when Keith was saying, like, he wanted also, the name Sharon to be in it. And so therefore, I said, okay, we'll go with that. So they wanted Sharon to be in it. So everybody's throwing in the names. And so I just thought about what we did. I mean, people were saying like Sharon, they were saying like Sharon Bible, they were saying like different things. And so my last entry was, okay, let's just combine it, Sharon Bible Fellowship Church. And so I submitted mine, and they all liked it. And here we are, 20 years later. Thank you. No, thank me.
And initially he would come down from Philly every single Sunday for 6 years. And on Thursday nights. The reason we have Bible study on Thursday nights is because he had Bible study on Wednesdays at Sharon North. So Thursdays was available. He would come, sometimes on his motorcycle. I said, you're going to keep me on my knees. And he would come and spend time with us. We would put him up in a nearby hotel, and he would be here because he had to do counseling. He had to pastor us. Can you imagine somebody doing that for 2 churches? On Sundays, we'd wait because we'd have to have service in the afternoon, so he would do his service in the morning, and then he'd drive down and have somebody with him. A couple of times we actually had a plane where somebody allowed him to charter a plane, and they would come down so he wouldn't have to do that driving back and forth. And we would have dinner, because he was going to be here. We'd feed him, the officers would eat, and nobody wanted to go home. It was just a wonderful time. The spirit was high, and we were so excited about this church. It was in June 1997 that we actually occupied the space, and we had our first service. And it was packed to the rafters, And we had invited the pastor of Seabrook to be a part. We had some other ministers, Michael Parker, and there was another minister, I can't think of his name right now, that we had on our staff. And we had a regular church service with singing, and we had all the ministers and the deacons from Sharon North. I mean, we were in the balcony, and it was just all over the place. And at the end of that service, we had a massive right hand of fellowship. The people lined up in all the perimeter of the church, all the way around, and Pastor Reed shook each person's hand individually. And it was just an awesome sight. We were so on fire. He said, as the word says, didn't our hearts burn? And yes, we were so on fire for the Lord. And that was what I remember about that service, because people came from far and wide to support us. God sent them to let us know that this is the right thing to do.
after a period of 5 years, I noticed that at that time, I think we grew to about 250 people. And that was at an unconventional timing. But I also noticed that we started to plateau, if you would. And I had enough sanctified sense to know and was not insecure about this church being more. Pastor Kurt did come on staff part-time to Sharon during that time, and he did was in a position of I think he was developing a sale kind of church, and we both went to a pastor, I think it was in the same town as Jimmy Swaggart was in back then. We went to classes there. We took this workshop up there, and we learned some valuable lessons. So we began to, after leaving the conference, we took those principles and we started to apply them in Sharon in cell churches or cell fellowships groups. It worked out real fine. I mean, it was really well. It was done well. He did a phenomenal job with it. One of the other things that helped me confirm him as my choice was that I saw that he loved people and he knew how to talk to people. Sometimes people, ministers particularly, that are on staff at an established church or have been the pastor, a pastor of a previous church, their attitudes and their perception of people get jaded, or they were already jaded. He never took the position of authority that he was placed in as a position of lordship, of lording over the people. That was very important to me because that was never my style of pastoring, to lord over the people of God. As Peter tells us not to do that. Very gentle, very rational, as well as very spiritual in dealing with the flock. And I think that was also another plus, if you would, or another kudo, or another prompting of confirmation that he was supposed to be that person. So I love him for that. I love him for how he handles God's people and the baby that has been placed in his hands. And he was a man of character. A lot of preachers, pastors, preacher teachers, they have major charismata, which in the Greek is the word gift. Majorly gifted, but have little character. So some people are top heavy with the charismata, but they lack character. Not only does he have charismata, but he also has character. And there needs to be some kind of equality with both of those things. So I appreciate him in that he loved God, loved the Lord, loved his family, loved his wife. And those are two qualities that are non-negotiables when it comes to the pastorate. So I am just so pleased, so grateful, so happy that God has used him to do what I couldn't do, to be what I couldn't be. I am elated over the fact. And I say to you, my son, my brother, my colleague, my friend, don't grow weary in well-doing. For in due season you'll reap and faint not.
We lived in Coatesville, Pennsylvania, and it was a really beautiful area where we lived. A lot of greenery, scenery was awesome. And I remember one day I was looking out the window from my bedroom and just saying to myself, I could see myself living all my life here. And immediately after I had said that to myself, I heard these words, "This is not where you're going to stay." And I immediately, when I heard it, I said, "Lord, are you moving us? This is not where I'm going to stay?" And I kind of left it like that. But I knew in my heart that the Lord put it in my heart that we were not going to stay in Coatesville, Pennsylvania. So when you say what kind of faith did it take, the Lord had already prepared my heart, and He had prepared my children. And God worked everything out, even the job. My husband's job with IBM paid for all the packing, helped us pack up, and so the Lord just worked everything. My husband was able to get a full-time job here in Lanham, Maryland. Everything just fell into place. So when we saw how everything was falling into place, confirmation was everywhere. So to God be the glory for that. So it was God's calling for us to be here. So what do I remember about that evening, the installation? It was, the forecast was that we were going to have a blizzard. It was coming. They talked about maybe the blizzard was going to start in the evening, maybe around the same time of the installation, and God held off the snow. Sharon Baptist came down, the whole church. It looked like the whole church came down and filled up Prince George County Community College. It was packed in there. I couldn't believe it was all for the installation of the Kirk family, but it was for us, and it was a blessing to all the people that came out and showed their love. But one of the things that stand out was the music. The choir came out, there was flags and dancing and the songs. It was just awesome. I just remember how beautiful everybody came out and sang. The excitement in the air, the installation of giving the keys over to the pastor, the Bible, installed they gave him a Bible. It was a blessing. I remember sitting there and saying, "Wow, Lord, this is you calling us to something big, something wonderful, something awesome." And we are truly humbled by it.
So pastoring Sharon has been a really good personal experience for me, especially because I came from a church prior to Sharon Bible Fellowship. It was my first pastorate, where I think it was a training ground for me. The people were kind and difficult at the same time. And then the Lord brought me to Sharon Bible Fellowship, where it was a totally different experience because the people were very kind and appreciative of the gift and the ministry that God had given me. And so personally, these last 14 years have been really a joy in pastoring. It's had its challenges, but it's been a joy because of the people who I believe really appreciate the pastor and what he brings every Sunday morning. And from a spiritual perspective, pastoring Sharon has challenged me to stay in the Word. We have some very astute biblical scholars in our church who know their Bible, and so I have to come ready every Sunday and present the Word of God to them and challenge them for life and living and edification. And so it's helped me spiritually not to skate so much, but to stay in the Word, to study, to seek God's face. And the challenge spiritually, which God is amazing, is to be relevant for the things that are going on, not only in the church in general, but there are individuals in the church who are going through things. And so we want to make sure that the Word touches everybody's life in every way possible. So what the Lord has spoken to me recently as far as the future and vision of Sharon is that we need to be a church in action. Currently, on the wall of Sharon, it says that we have a passion for God and compassion for people. And what we have done is a lot of internal ministering, if you will. We fellowship well. People on the inside of our church have been going through different things, and we've been ministering to those needs, which I think is appropriate, because the ultimate goal with this church in action is to go outside of the walls of the church and begin to engage the community, begin to engage the culture, and just begin to engage those who stand in need. I think it was appropriate for us as a church to build ourselves up so that we could be prepared to meet the needs of others. So when you think about that, the church can embrace that vision, helping others and being a church in action by really thinking ministry-minded about how we as a church can reach souls, how we as a church can help those who are in need in our community, how we as a church can do civic-minded duties. I don't want to be political. I know that scares some people, but I think we need to be more aware of the political climate that is around our church and in our county, and how that affects us as a church, but how we as a church can make a difference and stand on the Word when it comes to civic and social issues.
Is to see the hand of God move on our behalf. That's the Sharon way. He moves and we praise him. And I think the fact that when we go back and remember where we were back then, in the library, in the hotel, in the church now, that's why it's easy for us to praise him.
For me, Sharon Bible Fellowship will always be, and it was the only church that I ever planted, the only church that I ever founded. So I say to you, Pastor Kurt, son, colleague, brother, to the Sharon family, the leadership of the Sharon Bible Fellowship Church, I need for you to know, if you don't know, I love you so dearly. I pray for you so daily. And I desire for you that you would continually, on an ongoing basis, have a passion for God and compassion for God. Love you. God bless you. Peace.